Hi, I'm Steve from the Oasis site. I wonder if you've ever been hoodwinked by a text telling you that you've won a free iPad, holiday, a year's worth of groceries. You get all excited, but then as you explore it, you find that there are conditions attached. It's not the free gift that you thought it was, and it loses its value to you. Well, the book of Romans and our verses today in chapter 4 address a situation a bit similar to this. There's a lot about Abraham in these verses, and it may seem strange to us, but actually it's not a dry and dusty and irrelevant history lesson. These verses say that for us as followers of Jesus, Abraham is the father of us all, and the blessings on him are on us too. Childless Abraham received a promise. You'll find it in Genesis 15. It was a promise from God that his offspring would be as numerous as the stars. There was no small print, no conditions attached, nothing hidden. And we can respond to God's promises that come to us in the same way as that, in one of two ways, because many of God's promises to us are unconditional. We can respond like Abraham. He very simply believed God, and that was enough to make him right with God. Or we can feel that such free gifts are really too good to be true, and we need to pay for them or deserve them in some way. We might call this good works or obeying God's rules or laws. But Romans and these verses that we're looking at today show us what our response should be. In terms of getting right with God, believing by faith and good works or law keeping are totally opposed and incompatible. Once we know God, faith and works fit hand in glove together. But in terms of getting right with God, they're just incompatible. So let's look at some of the things that we can learn from these verses by looking at Abraham more closely. Firstly, he knew God as a gracious giver. You know, good works say you must. God says, I will. Good works say, be obedient and God will bless you. God says, I will bless you, so believe my promise. Secondly, we see that Abraham faced the apparent impossibility of the promise, but he knew that God had the power to fulfill it. He wasn't put off by being nearly 100 years old and having a wife who was barren. He knew he could bring nothing to the party. You know, we like to think that our good works make life easier for God. Very simply, they don't. These verses make clear that our very best works and our law keeping are totally useless in making us right with God. You see, no one other than Jesus has ever kept the law perfectly. We are naturally very gifted lawbreakers, and that simply incites and invites the wrath of God, God's righteous anger. Thirdly, we see that Abraham grew in faith as the years rolled by and nothing appeared to be happening. That's amazing. He knew God is faithful. He knew God hadn't forgotten him and that he would be true to his word. You put all these things together and we find that Abraham's faith wasn't some kind of blind faith, just wishful thinking or hoping for the best. It was grounded in his knowledge of what God is like, his love, his grace, his faithfulness, and his power. He was fully convinced that God was able to do what he had promised. I find this all very challenging for me because we have so much more than Abraham had. We have so many other greater reasons to believe and trust God than Abraham. We live on the other side of Jesus' birth, life, death on the cross as our substitute and his resurrection, showing that his sacrifice was enough to cover our sin and turn away God's righteous anger. Plus, we have all this explained to us in the book of Romans and the rest of the Bible, in preaching, books and seminars. And we have the example of many generations of believers who have believed it and lived for the glory of God. So let's keep living like Father Abraham, not doubting God's willingness or his ability, or slipping back into thinking that somehow we can earn his favor by our performance or what we think we can bring to the table. Instead, let's humbly, eagerly, and gratefully receive and take hold of the many promises and blessings he wants to lavish on us through Jesus as his beloved children, even today. God bless you. Have a good day.